Hello and welcome to the BigFix Briefing Room. It's November 2025 and we definitely have some content to share with you this month. My name is Michelle McGough and I'm here with Joe Saylor. And Joe, why don't you kick us off with Microsoft?
Yeah, of course. So by the numbers, this month is fairly light. We've only got about 63 total vulnerabilities. One of them is a 0-day. It is actively exploited, so maybe a little more concerning than your usual 0 days. I do have some recommendations to accelerate your patching for web servers on Microsoft operating systems and for Office. So those two things have some pretty critical patches you are going to want to get ahead of sooner than later.
Okay. Looks
All
like
right, so
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, starting out with our actively exploited 0-day. This one to me is not terribly concerning. It's not an initial point of compromise. It's just an elevation of privilege for an attacker that already has rights on the system. So this is a post-compromise escalator. Of course, you know, I kind of sleep on these. There's about 1 million different ways in Windows to escalate once you already have privileges. It's concerning that it's actively exploited, right? There's code out there that does this, but not something that you need to accelerate your patching for.
Can I ask, you use the term post-compromise escalator. So I don't think I've heard you say that before. So let me see if I can extrapolate that out. I mean, basically the attacker's gotten in there, have compromised it, and so then they're able to just escalate privileges. Is that just another way of saying that?
Yeah, basically. So, you know, anything that's post-compromise is just something that allows an attacker to do more than what you would expect from the thing that they compromised, right? So in this case, an attacker would have compromised a regular user's account. They don't have administrative rights. They don't have anything that user can pivot to on the network that's very interesting. But this allows them to, on the local box anyway, pivot to more damaging activities that a system administrator could do rather than a regular user.
Yeah, and so this is why it's sort of a boring, it's a boring 0-day because we've seen so many of these, and it's weird to think of it as a 0-day with a 7.0. I always think of 0 days as like a 9.8 or a 10, and that's not really the case. There's just already code out there that can exploit it. Okay, thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Well, this looks more interesting.
It has a fun graphic. So this one's really interesting. There's been some buzz out on the internets for this one already. It is a 9.8 on the CVSS scale. It's got a network attack vector. It has no user action required marked. So there's all sorts of really, really nasty things here where this is an initial compromiser. So this isn't something that requires an account to already be compromised. This gives an attacker the initial compromise. However, that's kind of only on servers. This has a light side and a dark side to it. So on a client endpoint, something that doesn't accept incoming files, you really have to trick a user into clicking on a malicious document. There's some metadata in a document that this requires, some malicious metadata, and a user has to click on it. So this is really, on client endpoints, not terribly concerning because there is no network attack vector, right? Like that's local. An attacker has to trick someone or they have to already have some rights.
Okay, yeah, and we're seeing a high score. The score sounds accurate. We've got remote code execution, elevation of privileges, and no user interaction, which seems so upside down.
Yeah, but only on servers, right? So
right,
for
right. That's so strange. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has to be a web server, and the web server has to accept file uploads.
Okay.
So think any like file converter on the internet, right? Like something like that. I do worry that there's maybe some additional attack surface here that we don't expect because maybe you don't have validation set on input on your servers. Maybe you don't expect it to be able to accept files as a packet, but maybe it would anyway, right? So I think there's some unknown attack vector there for web servers. So for me, for this, even if your web server doesn't by design accept files as an argument, I would kind of consider them vulnerable to this anyway. So, patch any Microsoft operating system that hosts a web server immediately, just right now, yesterday, if you can.
And this is not specifically, is it called out that it's specifically limited to web servers, or are we just extrapolating that out from the type of attack?
That is specifically called out in the vulnerability. Yeah, and so on the web servers, it is correct that this is a no user interaction required network attack vector attack. But then when you pop down to client devices with no web server, that network attack vector goes away, and then the user interaction is required. And so that would like bump this down to a 7 on those client devices for CVSS anyway.
Okay. Yeah, and I think when we were talking offline, you were thinking that this really should have come out as 2 separate CVEs. That it's very confusing the way that this is published.
Yeah, it's definitely there's a dichotomy here that doesn't work with the CVSS system. It just really doesn't. It would probably have been great if they could have somehow split these into 2 separate CVE documents, but the way CVEs are organized, you kind of can't, because the CVE is the vulnerability, it not necessarily the context that it applies. So yeah, it's a weakness in the system, I think.
Great find, Joe. Thanks for bringing it up. Oh, hold on. I said I would take a shot every time we saw Outlook preview pane.
Oh, that is the worst kind of drinking game. Oh no, you're not going to survive the month.
It's a day ending in Y. If anybody's still using Outlook locally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a classic one. There is a vulnerability in all Office applications where a maliciously crafted document can trigger remote code execution. For all the other applications, for your Word, your Excel, your PowerPoint, not a terribly big deal because a user has to be tricked into opening a document. But of course, Outlook, it has the preview pane that automatically opens emails. So if it's your top email and it has a malicious document in it, it will just automatically open when you open Outlook and destroy your system. So not ideal. Patch Outlook.
We've seen this every month for, I don't know how many months now. I'd have to go back and look, but it's getting old. So looking forward to the day when this stops.
Gift that keeps on giving.
Well, what's next? Criticals and quote.
Yeah, these ones are kind of funny. I kind of feel like the guy at Microsoft that was like choosing severities for vulnerabilities this month just had a quota. Like he needed 4. He needed to mark 4 as critical, and then he just kind of threw darts at these 2. By the scoring, they're not that severe. They hit the 7 mark, and that's because they both have local attack vectors. One of them you have to have Visual Studio installed for, which is not a common thing, right? Just contextually not common. The Visual Studio one in particular is super complicated to exploit, because not only do you have to have like trick user into opening a file, it relies on a vulnerability in the interaction with Copilot, and you have to win a race condition against Copilot. So not only do you have to like trick somebody into clicking on something, they have to also let it run for hours, minutes at least, because you don't win a race condition by running exploit once. You have to just like keep spamming it until you hit the right timing. So yeah, both not particularly severe in my opinion.
Yeah, so it sounds like these are not on the prioritization list. They should get done, but it's not the focus. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, marked as critical, and I'm kind of confused why.
Yeah. Okay. Big bada boom.
Big one. So fun story for the month, fun nightmare fuel. Is there such a thing as fun nightmare fuel? I'll leave that one with you. Google dropped a report on LLM usage by advanced persistent threat groups, really any threat group. And in there, they found that there has been, kind of for the first time, I guess they detected it maybe a month or 2 ago, there was a couple of tools, one of them named PromptFlux, one of them named PromptSteal, that used Gemini at execution time. So after they dropped it on target's box, or after they tricked a target into clicking on it, it used Gemini to generate the malware code on the fly.
Okay, so I mean, my brain immediately goes to, well, it's unique code, so it's not going to show up in a pattern you know, somewhere, so many cybersecurity tools that are looking for patterns, it's not going to show up. Is there any personalization or other, you know, is it querying Gemini? Does it know anything about that device or that user that could make it even extra malicious?
Yeah, there's for sure more tools, not necessarily these ones in particular. To me, these seemed a little clumsy because they're going straight to Gemini, like a public thing that has guardrails on it, and the guardrails change. One of the tricks they use to get around the guardrails right now are like they'll pretend to be a student doing research, and they try to trick Gemini into giving them malicious code because it won't give you, like if I ask like little Timmy, like Tiny Tim here, if I ask Gemini for a malware, Gemini is going to say, no, I can't give you a malware. But if I say, hey, Gemini, give me some code that backs up my users directory to a cloud, some cloud site, right? Then it's like, oh, that doesn't sound like malware. I'll give you that.
I'm helping you, right? Same outcome, different context in the prompt. Oh, right. Okay, so we've got a long way to go here with guardrails. That's going to be extremely complex to code around. Okay.
Yeah. And then to your point, the detection of this is, of course, going to be very difficult because there's you can't heuristically check on something that doesn't exist yet, right? You can't check on some malicious structure because the structure doesn't exist. There is no structure in the code block that the client is running.
Now, some of the better cybersecurity tools are able to look at not just the code, but they're looking at the behavior of what is happening in the background. I wonder if they would potentially pick some of this up. It's hard to say. It depends on what that code is, because we don't know what it's going to be, right? So this is just, it's so interesting. It's so many unknowns. All right, I get it. Nightmare fuel. I'm with you. Okay.
So another interesting part of this report that they dropped was this list. I really liked it. It gives me much better context on kind of the dark tools that are out there for AI. The font's certainly going to be a little small, so I apologize for that. You can see the full thing in all its glory in the Google report. So this is basically a list of the current tools that are being used by threat actors. In general, they're capable of generating just entire campaigns worth of malware, like kind of front to back, depending on the exact tool here. One thing that I think that isn't as obvious that it's super valuable for a threat actor and super damaging to us as people who are not threat actors is that that research and reconnaissance column there. It sounds bad, but the context there is even worse than you think, which, sorry for the additional nightmare fuel. Basically, that means that it will do stuff like trawl LinkedIn for targets and will do like research on those targets. So stuff like, obviously CEOs, that's an easy target, right? Of course, it'll find that. But even down to, because LLMs are so smart, even down to stuff like a new system administrator, maybe a junior level sysadmin who has a lot of rights and can pivot into a lot of systems, but is maybe not that experienced and maybe not savvy enough to really defend themselves as well as they could from these attacks. So it'll do all the research, and then in addition to that, engage the target on like social media, send them Twitter messages that are like appear to be like a real person. So
I want to ask, I'm sorry for interrupting. I have to ask. So in the research and reconnaissance, Worm GPT and Xanthrax, I don't know, are those potentially sources that an attacker could have been using for maybe a few years now to identify new admins? And when I say admins, I mean like office managers, C-suite personal assistants, because there have been so many social, what do we call it? Social engineering, where the person will pretend to be the CEO or some important person at the company and say, I need you to wire me some money. and the person is brand new. They're feeling the pressure. They want to respond to this really important person in the company. They want to make a good impression, and dang it, they just get fooled and they send the money, and then they don't find out till later, well, they were a little naive and they got caught. So, I always wondered how are these attackers identifying people in their first week of work? I mean, in theory, if these utilities do what you're saying, like just in the research and reconnaissance in the yellow there, then they're able to filter out I just started a new job this week. There's that like automatic LinkedIn file that comes up,
Yeah.
you add a new job to your profile. I mean, is that just causing a person to be a potential target?
Yeah.
Getting their profile. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
for sure. Like that's an easy data mine for attackers.
Okay.
And it kind of works in the other direction as well. You get these high value targets that have big titles, and attackers also use that in kind of a reverse help desk attack, right? Well, where they'll go and kind of try to impersonate, say, the CEO or one of the high level admins. To say, hey, I need my password reset right now, right? Like that's another common attack vector that requires some research that these tools automate.
And then they've got the deep fake, the image generation. We've heard it's been more than a year since there was like a deep fake of a CEO, right? Like a voicemail or something like that. So really with this suite of capabilities, you've got end-to-end support for all different kinds of attacks.
Yep, it's AI attacks as a service is what's going on here. And keep in mind, these are they're like ChatGPT and like Gemini. They're the same kind of models, but these are all run on private hardware, so they do not have any guardrails at all, right? Like the guardrails are determined by the attackers, and obviously they're not going to guardrail themselves, right? So it's all that power of language models, but with no safety nets.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry, enjoy your sleep tonight.
It's really good to, I had wondered how, especially around the targeting, how is somebody able to target so effectively? How are they doing this research? And there has been, utilities probably for some time. I imagine this is nothing new. It's just being surfaced, right? Being exposed more to people like me that aren't in that community of attackers. So I didn't know where these were coming from. So you said Google published this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I would think we want to include a link to that in the video description, which I will do. Thank you, Joe. New releases.
Yeah.
Releases.
And now for some good news. So we have an 11.05 release. It's been out for a minute now, a few weeks. It is there's all sorts of interesting stuff in it. Kind of picked my favorite little bits here. We have updated several open source libraries. This is all just security stuff that always makes me happy to see that we're kind of tackling our technical debt and making sure we're secure and up to date. So the Amazon Web Services SDK and OpenSSL were both updated, so kind of core parts of the platform there. We got a couple of new agent supports, so support for macOS 26 and RHEL 10. So always good to see expanded OS support. And the other slightly nerdy thing that's going on here are the new inspectors, which we don't really see new inspectors that often in the platform.
No. And you picked these three. I think there were more than three, but I think so. But you picked these out.
Yeah, there's more than this. Some stuff in session relevance, which is even more on the nerdy esoteric side of things. But these ones are interesting because they really do represent expanded capabilities. Like for instance, the Windows logged in user properties. We have just more things that you can see from the logged in user, like when the last time they logged in was, what their login duration is. Just all that stuff is now natively available in relevance, it's great to see expanded relevance capabilities just because it's kind of so rare.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. I'm very excited about it. I have customers that have already adopted it. It seems to be a good release. just really happy to see some more progress. I think there were a lot of the release notes for this one were quite long, if I recall correctly. So folks, there's a lot more in this release than what Joe fit on this little slide. You want to go into the forum, you can see all the release notes. I think Alessandro Denia, wrote most of those. He did a great job. They're quite explicit, so you can understand the value of each one of these benefits. Well, that's it. You made it. You made it to the end. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next month. Have a great patch cycle. I think that's probably the best thing.